Great. All right. Good morning. I am Ward 4 Councilmember Janeese Lewis-George, Chair of the Committee on Facilities. It is 1:10 p.m. on Monday, May 18th, 2026, and I call to order this additional meeting of the Committee on Facilities to consider the report and recommendations of the Committee on Facilities of the fiscal year 2027 Local Budget Act of 2026 and the fiscal year 2027 Budget Support Act 2026 for the agencies under its purview. This additional meeting is being held in person in room 500 of the John A. Wilson Building and is also being broadcast live on my website at janeeseward4.com/live. I note for the record the presence of a quorum consisting of at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson and Ward 1 Councilmember Brianne Nadeau. The Committee on Facilities directly oversees and supports vital work that ensures safe, sustainable construction and maintenance of district government spaces, vibrant programming and facilities in our parks and recreation, and the accessible delivery of inclusive services for people with disabilities. These are the core resources that our communities depend on. And it is therefore essential that the committee uses its oversight function and budget decisions to ensure the continued delivery and maintenance of these resources, even during economically fraught years. Over the past year, federal actions have caused significant financial strain on the district as we head into fiscal year 2027. The difficult fiscal climate facing the district and its government is reflected within the microcosm of the jurisdiction of the committee. In fiscal year 2025, the committee identified and recommended reinvestments of $6.1 million. This year, the funds available to the committee to improve the well-being of the district and its people amounted to less than half of that. To that end, the committee recommends budget allocations and transfers that prioritize investing in youth and strengthening climate, economic health, and neighborhood resiliency. Every budget recommendation and transfer recommendation in this report are aligned with achieving these priorities. While I'm proud of the work this committee has accomplished in this budget, there is far more to do. With that, for the record, and for the benefit of the public and the members of the committee, I'd like to walk through the committee's recommendations and how they connect back to these guiding principles. Investing in youth. Despite having fewer resources, the committee's determination to empower the young people of the district is self-evident in this report. 80% of the committee's recommended allocations from its own funding and are designated to benefit primarily the district's children and young adults. Throughout budget oversight hearing, this committee and other council committees heard testimony from residents calling for more investments in youth. If we want youth to succeed academically, we must ensure that school spaces have comfortable temperatures, are ADA compliant and accessible, and are free from mold and other hazardous conditions. If we want youth to learn healthy ways to navigate an increasingly complex world, then we must invest in programming and safe spaces that build self-confidence and create vital third spaces where young people can be with their peers. To that end, the committee makes the following recommendations. The committee adds $2,144,000 in recurring operating funds to the Department of Parks and Recreation to expand recreation. The committee also adds $435,000 in one-time operating funds to DPR to expand recreational hours of operation and programming during summer 2026. This committee charged DPR and the Office of Revenue Analysis to identify the costs, not just extending hours of operation, but offering meaningful programming and providing the security and janitorial services necessary to foster safe and clean spaces. Without programming, without security, without cleaning, rec centers would have been open longer, but would not have achieved the goal of creating safe, inviting, and engaging spaces for youth. Working in partnership with these agencies was essential to assuring a solution that meaningfully addresses the needs raised by youth and families. I want to thank Councilmember Brooke Pinto for sending $200,000 in fiscal year 26 funding so that DPR can get a head start on this expansion this summer. And Councilmember Brianne Nadeau for sending $235,000 in fiscal year 26 funding and $400,000 in reoccurring funding. Thank you for your investments in our young people. The committee adds $315,000 in one-time operating funds to DGS for the summer 2026 readiness efforts. The conditions of schools is an issue of utmost importance to students, families, educators, and community leaders because it is an issue that is inherently tied to academic success, public safety and justice, public health, economic development, environmentalism, accessibility, and chronic absenteeism. DGS Annual Summer Readiness Blitz represents the district's most critical window for addressing accumulated maintenance needs and infrastructure failures, and this additional funding will help ensure that DGS addresses urgent repairs before schools open for the 2027-2028 school year. The committee also transfers $294,000 in reoccurring operating funds to the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor for the DOES Career Ready Early Scholars Program. The Department of Employment Services Career Ready Early Scholars Program is a popular 6-week summer program for youth ages 9 to 13 that provides early exposure to careers, college pathways, job readiness skills, teamwork, problem solving, and goal setting. There are too few summer programming options for tween youth, with many summer camp options either financially out of reach for many district families or not appealing to youth on the cusp of adolescence. This funding will expand access to structured summer programming that helps younger students stay engaged, build confidence, and explore future career and college pathways. As the number of scholars who participate in this effective program increases, so does the number of children who become and adults who remain equipped with knowledge and skills that set them, their families, and their communities on a path for success and prosperity. Now we will move to resilience. The state of our climate, economy, health, and neighborhoods determine our district's resiliency, which is needed more than ever. For this reason, the committee has focused strengthening the resilience of the district through each of these interdependent areas. Under climate resilience, the committee transfers $200,000 in one-time operating funds to the Committee on Transportation and Environment, to DOEE for the greenhouse gas emission study. Decades of failing to address our changing environment has left our communities facing the unavoidable consequences of these failures. We are seeing worsening heat, worsening weather patterns, and forever chemicals and microplastics accumulate in our bodies. The district must prepare for a more climate resilient future, and this study will assess impacts on public health, housing, flood preparedness and safety, natural resources, economic development, and other essential systems, as well as quantify the cost of necessary adaptation and disaster recovery. To ensure the district has the tools it needs to plan for the future with clarity, foresight, and confidence, we must first understand the financial impacts of extreme weather, especially as it becomes more severe and less predictable. While we cannot eliminate uncertainty from the weather itself, we can eliminate uncertainty from how we prepare for it. Under economic resilience, the committee transfers $50,000 in one-time operating funds to our Main Street Tacoma, an initiative of the Old Tacoma Business Association. Main Street Tacoma supports independently owned local businesses and works to build and sustain a vibrant commercial district, preserve our neighborhood's history, and strengthen Tacoma Business Corridor through economic vitality, design, promotion, and community building efforts. Under health resilience, the committee, with an amendment we will vote on in a moment, adds $728,000 in one-time operating funds to DDS for the administrative fee for disability residential service providers. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities must receive the quality, accessible, person-centered care they need, deserve, and are entitled to. However, their ability to do so depends on the district's commitment to ensuring our residential disability service provider network receives the resources necessary to provide such care. The mayor's fiscal year 2027 proposed budget reduces the administrative fee to 50% of fiscal year 2024 levels, as the proposed budget did in fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 25. The administrative fee compensates providers for the work of complex record keeping, maintenance of charts of accounts, and allocating funds across service lines. This committee received testimony outlining the continued importance of the administrative fee as costs rise and vacancy rates among direct support professionals remain consistently high. The committee also adds $5,000 to DGS to issue a request for the long-term lease space sufficient to accommodate a future senior wellness center in Ward 3. Under neighborhood resilience, the committee makes a number of budget recommendations and transfers, recommendations to foster greener, active, healthier, and more vibrant communities. The committee transfers $170,699 in reoccurring operating funds to the Committee of the Whole for a Department of Buildings inspector. Currently, DOB has two categories of housing inspectors: inspectors who proactively inspect properties to ensure code compliance, and two, inspectors who respond to complaints submitted by tenants. This new inspector will focus on a third category of housing: rental properties that have an excessive amount of ongoing code violations that have not been remediated. Currently, the housing providers with excessive ongoing code violations are dominating the inspector schedules, often delaying proactive and complaint-based inspections. This additional inspector will focus on the more problematic housing providers, freeing up other inspectors for more routine inspections. Thousands of DC residents live in substandard conditions that can be dangerous to their safety and their health, making this an investment that addresses health and climate resilience as well. The committee also makes the following budget recommendations that total $450,000 in operating funds and more than $26 million in capital enhancements across the district. The committee adds $350,000 in reoccurring operating funds to DPR to maintain grants for the Eastern Market Metro Park in Ward 6. The committee also adds $100,000 in reoccurring operating funds to DGS to refresh and repair Eastern Market Metro Park amenities in Ward 6. The committee reallocates $1,365,000 in capital funds within DPR for the modernization of Parkview Recreation Center in Ward 1. The committee reallocates $250,000 in capital funds within DPR to acquire O Street Park in Ward 7. The committee reallocates $700,000 in capital funds within DPR for fiscal year 28 and 29 to activate O Street Park in Ward 7. The committee also adds $500,000 in capital funds to DPR to support implementation of the Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant Vision Framework for Public Realm Design in Ward 1. The committee adds $3 million in capital funds to DPR to support a full build-out of new park facilities and improvements to small parks in the Lower Georgia Avenue cluster in Ward 1. The committee adds $15,400,000 in capital funds for fiscal year 27 and 28 to DPR for the Langdon Park and Community Center redeployment project in Ward 5. The committee adds $2,800,000 in capital funds to DGS to support Eastern Market capital maintenance and construction needs in Ward 6. The committee adds $400,000 in capital funds to DPR to fully modernize the Watkins Recreation Center, Spray Park, and adjoining green space in Ward 6. The committee adds $400,000 in capital funds to DPR for design and construction of a new dog park in Mount Vernon Triangle in Ward 6. The committee adds $250,000 in capital funds to DPR for installation of amenities at the newly modernized Garfield Park Connector. The committee adds $1 million in capital funds for fiscal year 28 to DPR for planning and design for Langsburg Park and renovation. The committee also adds $2 million in capital funds for fiscal year 29 to DPR to renovate both fields at Randall Recreation. The committee adds $250,000 in capital funds to DPR to redesign Triangle Park and 14th Street, D Street, and Kentucky Avenue Southeast. The committee transfers $250,000 in capital funds for fiscal year 28 to the Committee on Transportation and the Environment for DDOT to revitalize Triangle Park in Ward 7. I want to thank Ward 1 Councilmember Brianna Doe, Ward 5 Councilmember Zachary Parker, Ward 6 Councilmember Charles Allen, and Ward 7 Councilmember Wendell Felder for their collaboration, acceptance of transfers, and sending significant funding into the capital budgets of DGS and DPR. Finally, while I'm glad we could accomplish what we did, I want to emphasize the work of this committee and the council is not finished. We still have a great deal to accomplish before the next and final votes on this budget and for the rest of the year. Especially, I look forward to working with Chairman Middleton and Councilmember Fruman and Allen to restore the dire cuts to DC's critical safety net and programs that protect our environment. The restructuring of TANF and disinvestment from life-saving housing programs like permanent supportive housing are more than alarming. They speak to a deeper issue that we are facing as a council and as a district. Will we protect our most vulnerable during times of uncertainty? Or will we allow that uncertainty to scare us into inaction? And the deep cuts to our Department of Energy and Environment must not go unnoticed. In 2 years, we are facing down a massive reduction in spending on environmental resiliency. And if we don't pay the price of preparation now, we will only find ourselves paying for the inaction later. I am disappointed to have been unable to reverse the misuse of the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund, which was once again appropriated to pay the district's utility bills. The administration deliberately takes this money from its intended use and instead uses it to pay utility bills because they know we cannot reverse the cuts without creating a deficiency that OCFO will allow. It's irresponsible and continues a dangerous status quo because the district will not be able to adapt our communities quickly enough to protect our residents from an increasingly unstable climate if we do not make these investments now. I also remain deeply concerned about the impact the cuts to DGS maintenance budgets will have on district students, teachers, employees, and residents. An $11 million cut to virtually eliminates DCPS HVAC preventative maintenance program, which has made tremendous progress in keeping systems functioning over the last 5 years. $6.3 million to cut to janitorial services, $2 million cut to mowing services, and $200,000 to landscaping, all mean fewer services per week and likely fewer hours per service. I look forward to working with my colleagues to addressing these gaps so we can both maintain the health and safety of our buildings and avoid permanent damage to our expensive capital that will cost us much more down the road. The circumstances facing the district are both local and federal levels are all unprecedented. Many are new and many are not going away. The limitations imposed by these circumstances on this budget are dire but not insurmountable. The council must not fail to meet this historic and high-stakes moment that requires intentional, compassionate, and evidence-driven restoration and protection of the services, programs, and spaces that district residents need, deserve, and are entitled to. I'm happy to share the additional funding has been identified this morning since the committee circulated the draft report. And so before we get to discussion on the vote and the report, I'm going to move an amendment. This amendment increases the committee's restoration of the administration fee for residential disability service providers in DDS budget. I'm glad with the addition, the committee fiscal year 27 restoration closer to the amount the committee was able to restore in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. This amendment adds about $528,000 in one-time funds in fiscal year 27 and $450 in reoccurring funds starting in fiscal year 2028. This will be the first time the council enhancement to the administration fee will not be only one time, and I expect DDS to keep these reoccurring funds in fiscal year 28. With that, I move the amendment to increase the committee's enhancement to the administrative fee for DDS residential service providers. Any discussion? No.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Louis George, for the dedication you and your team have shown in crafting this budget report.
Oh, this is to the amendment.
Oh,
Wait.
I'm sorry, not to the amendment.
Oh, no. Okay, great. With that, hold on one second. With that, I move the amendment to increase the committee's enhancement to the administrative fee for DDS residential service and providers. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the amendment passes. I will now move and open the floor to discussion on the report and recommendations of the Committee on Facilities on the fiscal year 2027 Local Budget Act of 2026 and the fiscal year 2027 Budget Support Act of 2026 for the agencies under its purview as amended. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Nadeau.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And now I will thank you for your dedication and to you and your team for crafting this budget report. This fiscal year posed significant challenges for our district, but I am heartened to witness my colleagues' commitment to prioritizing essential services for our residents. With this budget, the committee has made investments in all 8 wards, serving every population from our youngest to our most senior. And there are a few areas that I'd like to highlight. Apologies for some repetition, but I think these are worth repeating. Regarding the Department of General Services and its work in supporting schools, I commend this committee for its diligent oversight of work order response times, particularly concerning school maintenance and readiness. I'm hopeful that this committee's $315,000 investment of one-time operating funds for school readiness efforts in FY26 will facilitate initiatives aimed at improving work order backlog and response time. When our kids don't have working water fountains or bathrooms or are learning in an environment with rats and roaches, they don't want to be in school. When safety issues like non-working cameras, broken locks and doors, and broken railings or bleachers aren't addressed, it undermines student morale, educator effectiveness, and student and educator safety. Schools should be clean, well-maintained, safe environments so our students can focus fully on learning and being kids. Ensuring the DGS is functioning as efficiently as possible is no easy feat. I also want to note the FY27 budget is a true collaboration between the Committees on Facilities and the Committee on Public Works and Operations when it comes to addressing long-standing issues with one of DC's hottest topics, parks and recreation. The Committee on Public Works and Operations proposes several reallocations and transfers to the Committee on Facilities and its budget markup to make strides toward a healthier city. Reallocation of $1.365 million in capital funds within Ward 1 Department of Public Works projects for the modernization of Parkview Recreation Center. $500,000 in capital funds to support implementation of Columbia Heights and Mount Pleasant Vision Framework for public realm design in Ward 1, which would prioritize investments in streets, parks, and plazas to make them safer, more welcoming, and better able to support local businesses and community culture. And $3 million to support a full build out of new park facilities and improvements to small parks in the Lower Georgia Avenue cluster in Ward 1. The committee also transferred $235,000 in one-time operating funds for FY26 to expand hours of operation and programming for DPR rec centers, giving youth all important resources and opportunities for positive experiences during more hours of the day, and $400,000 in recurring operating funds to support the expansion of DPR rec centers for a total investment of over $1.6 million over the financial plan. I also want to commend Councilmember Lewis George for her deep commitment to our residents. She added $200,000 in funds to the Department of Disability Services for residential disability service providers to support our residents, and $1.7 million in recurring operating funds for expansion of DPR recreation centers. So thank you, Councilmember Lewis George, for your thoughtful policy decisions, and my sincere gratitude to your staff for their tireless efforts. I look forward to seeing the priorities in this budget realized in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis George, and thank you for your leadership and collaboration on this year's budget. I first want to start with a clarification / apology that the Committee on Health intended to transfer some funding to the Committee on Facilities to pay for rodent-resistant trash cans at DPR facilities, but unfortunately we missed your committee's deadline to do so. However, the funding is still available, and the committee will work with the larger committee of the whole to transfer that money at a later date. So I'll start there. I also want to express my appreciation to you and your team for transferring $294,000 in recurring to the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor to cover the Career Ready Early Scholars Program. This program gives youth ages 9 to 13 the opportunity to explore career pathways they may not otherwise have had a chance to learn about or consider. And the Committee on Health will be sending another portion of that funding as well so that we can get that funded altogether. Before I highlight several other key items from this budget support, hold on one second. Okay, Councilmember Lewis George, I have an amendment.
Wonderful.
An oral amendment that I hope will be accepted as friendly of a transfer of $100,000 from the Committee on Health to the Committee on Facilities, specifically for the Department of General Services for, I think they refer to it as sanitation equipment, I believe is the line. If Councilmember Nadeau, don't be alarmed, DPW is still getting their money too, but we learned that because trash collection is divided between both DPW and DGS, money has to be sent to both locations because in this government, we can't all do trash together. I hope this amendment will be accepted as friendly and it will be reflected in the Committee on Health report.
Yes, it is accepted as friendly. I'm so appreciative of Councilmember Henderson and Councilmember Nadeau. All three of us have tried to take on trash, and we consistently still try to take on trash and also take on rats. So just so they know, trash and rats, we're coming for you.
Yes. Okay, I do have a couple of questions, if that's okay, just for clarification and for the record. There's some capital projects where money is being moved around. Specifically, the report shows an FY28 planned allotment for $1 million for a New York Avenue Recreation Center. Has a site been identified for this project? I'm not aware of an existing recreation center on New York Avenue.
No, it has not been identified for the area.
Okay, is it intended to be in the Ward 5 part of New York Avenue or the Ward 2 part of New York Avenue?
That's a great question. I believe it's Ward 5.
Okay,
It's Ward 5.
all right. So I'm assuming that the 1 million is for design and
Design, development, and construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a similar question related to $1 million for Landsberg Park renovation in FY28 as well. Is this for design or had that project already been started and this is to help with capital improvements there?
It's for planning and design.
It's for planning and design. Okay. The committee added 400,000 in capital funds for a new dog park in Mount Vernon Triangle in Ward 6. Let me just say for the record, like, I wish that East of the River got the same amount of attention on dog parks because I believe there is already funding for another dog park in other Northwest areas in this budget. But has a site been identified for this?
Yes, it will be on Massachusetts Avenue and Hook and Ladder Alley. It's like a small in size, but the community has been working on securing the space for a dog park there for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I agree with you that there needs to be more dog parks.
Yeah.
Did you funded one in Ward 7?
Yeah, the one in Ward 7 is
Did it
open. The one in Ward 7 needs some work orders completed.
Okay.
But that's okay. The
Well,
dogs are there. Okay.
We love it.
I just want to get a clarification about the plan project for Watkins Recreation Center. In one part of the report, it says that the committee adds 800,000 in capital funds to fully modernize that spray park and adjoining grease space. And then in another part of the report, it says that the committee adds 400,000. So I'm just asking for clarification. What should the final number be?
The total for the project is 800,000. The amount was changed due to updated estimates from DGS. And this will be reflected in the final report.
Okay. And then finally, well, yeah. I want to ask about the proposed BSA subtitle, the new one, with regard to advancing community needs at Ward 5 recreation centers. This subtitle gives me heartburn. And I understand there are times when we go through community input processes for designs and the community doesn't necessarily get all the things that they would like to see. However, I think this would be the first time that the council would say that DGS and DPR can't pull a single permit for either of these projects unless this laundry list of additions are fulfilled. And so that makes me very uncomfortable for a variety of reasons, especially if when I ask this question, if the answer to this is no. So I have to assume that this subtitle was scored.
Yes.
And are we adding the additional funding that DGS and DPR are saying would be required to achieve some of these additional items?
Yeah, well, so the subtitle itself does not have a cost, but Councilmember Parker transferred money to cover the cost of what they were getting. He had an email from DPR director about how much would be necessary to cover the costs and amenities that the community wanted to be added. And so it's not a formal score from ORA, but it is an estimate provided from the agency.
Okay. And let me just say that I don't feel like these are not necessarily things that are bad to have at a rec center, but both of these projects had already been under design. Would this subtitle require a delay on the project?
It in fact would provide a delay. And I I do have heartburn about this. We did get substantial testimony during the hearing from Ward 5 neighbors who have been a part of the process and have not been heard by Department of Parks and Recreation. And that same passion from those many community members who showed up also was conveyed passionately by the Ward 5 council member.
Okay.
And so I do have heartburn, but I am going to work with Councilmember Parker to
Okay.
look at how we move. But I think what the committee understands, like not everybody in the community will be satisfied with every design or capital project, but especially those that require sizable investment and lasting effects on the community. But it is due to the amount of taxpayers' dollars being spent on the permanency of the recreation center that it's in the best interest of DPR and DGS and the residents that it meets the design that will actually allow for residents to use it. I know DPR wants the center to become more of a destination center.
Yeah.
Given its portfolio wide. The problem is, the question is whether that can come at the cost of neighborhoods' needs and community needs. And so, again, giving we did get substantial testimony from the community and the Ward 5 council member regarding it. And so,
Okay. I don't want to get you into any.
Yes.
So can I ask a question of the budget office? Chair Lewis George talked about that they had a partial response or an estimate response from ORA. Some of the things that are required here, right? Like public restrooms that open directly to the park that can be used by residents even when the rec center is closed, or for another one that now the rec center design needs to have a skate park with a 360-degree bowl. Like those are additional costs. Those are not, it can be absorbed in the current design type of deal. So at what point will we actually learn how much these additional requests will actually cost the project?
You could just give us one moment,
Sure.
please.
While they're waiting on that, I think one thing that the committee wants to note is that we have seen a pattern develop across the district with DGS and DPR over the last year. More and more projects implemented by DGS and owned by its client agencies, including DPR, but also DCPS, are designed without sufficient support to justify moving forward to the construction phase. This is happening in many of our DC public schools. This is happening with DPR centers in every ward, from the Ward 2 to Ward 8, where they're just saying, well, this is what we want here, irrespective of what the community needs are. And so I know this is an unusual step. I agreed to move the subtitle, not just to ensure that the designs for Langdon Park and Center and Harry Thomas Rec are sufficient, but also emphasize the importance of the design phase of the capital project process. DGS and its client agencies like DPR cannot just hold listening sessions and then do what they want. Designs must be based on community feedback, not just merely crafted, but not just merely crafted after receiving it. And so I think, we've seen this happen across the board. I remember in Ward 8, the community wanted a basketball court, and they would actually have used the basketball court, and instead we put a pool there, even though it's a low utilization.
No, I hear you on that. I think there is also, though, community feedback, but there's also community feedback within the budget that is available. And not to suggest that we can't add
That's right.
additional money, But just because you want the Taj Mahal doesn't mean that the Taj Mahal is in the
Oh,
best interest of everyone. But it seems like you guys have an answer, maybe.
Sorry, there's too many microphones. So I think that the issue with how the subtitle is written and then thus how it is scored is that what it does is prohibit essentially them moving forward until the design includes certain elements, which it doesn't specify all of the elements of the design, but the ones that they want to see included. And I would say that given that, the project itself, the scope of it is going to change based on the new design. Whether or not that has additional costs, we'll know more when they come up with this, but I don't think it's necessarily something that's going to happen in the FY27 budget.
Right, but wouldn't there not be a cost to requiring DGS and DPR to go back to design?
I think what the cost is probably more opportunity in that it would delay what's the timeline for the project completion. So, I mean, I'm reading between the lines in terms of what ORA said and what I know the language of the subtitle to be. I think that the questions that you're asking are good questions in terms of the long-term viability of the project with the slowing the down and what the changes would be and what the long-term sort of impacts on that project are. Whether or not we'll have more on that from DGS going forward into the Committee of the Whole print, we'll see. But in terms of the actual language of the actual subtitle itself doesn't have a cost.
Okay. Okay. I've made my discomfort known on this, Councilmember George. I'm not going to vote against the entire budget report because of this, but I also want to be the Councilmember from Ward 5 is not on this committee, so he can make this recommendation on behalf of his constituents, et cetera. And I also know that sometimes the people who show up for these meetings are not always representative of the entire community. And what I didn't want to happen, and I still don't want to happen, is these projects inevitably be delayed, and then the committee is blamed for that without the full context of what went into that. It's okay to delay projects. We've done it before, but everybody needs to be very clear-eyed on why and what is the resolution.
Agree.
But I want to thank you, Councilman Lewis George, as well as your staff for your work on this report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I move the report and recommendations of the Committee on Facilities of the Fiscal Year 2027 budget for agencies under its purview with leave for staff to make technical, conforming, and editorial changes. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the motion passes. Before I adjourn, I'd like to share appreciation for people without whom both this report and the work of this committee overall would not be possible. First, thank you to my directors and their agency teams for working with this committee so closely during this budget and throughout the year. Delano Hunter, Director of DGS, Thene Freeman, Director of DPR, Andrew Reese, Director of DDS, Matthew McCullough, the late and deeply missed Director of ODR, Peter Steffen, the Acting Director of ODR, and Carrie Cook, Executive Director of the Division of Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing. If they didn't know before, they know now after joining our committee that oversight is not just performance season, it's not just budget season, it's always, including recess. But I want to thank them for showing up and continuing to work with us. A huge thank you to the entire budget office team, especially the committee's talented, dedicated, and patient budget analyst, Kyra Smith, as well as Ann Phelps, Jen Budoff, and the rest of your team. Every single budget, single allocation, and transfer achieved in this report would not have been possible without Kyra's skill, advice, and expertise, and we are grateful for her being a part of this council. Thank you to David Go, in the Office of General Counsel for diligently reviewing and advising on the legislation that is moved by the committee and my office as well. I also want to thank Jamie Latinen, our fiscal analyst of the Office of Revenue Analysis, for working with this committee and the agencies under its purview to ensure all work done by this committee is appropriately funded. I also would like to thank my committee and legislative staff for their hard work on this report and the entire budget so far, starting with Sebastian Wyman, our committee director, who continually, passionately shows up and does amazing oversight work and shows up for the community and has really made a difference in the lives of DC residents through his skilled oversight work and dedication. I also want to thank Nico Pachokin, Legislative Director, Jen Kaufman, my Senior Policy Advisor, Emily Neer, Senior Legislative Advisor, and I want to thank the rest of the staff for keeping things running, especially during this budget season so far. So to Kelly Hunt, my Chief of Staff, Ben Rosenfeld, my Communications Director, Barbara Rogers, my Community Engagement Director, LaPria Holton, Christian Smith, and Darrell Whitmere. Thank you all for your steadfast work. We're truly a team over here, and I appreciate all of you. Thank you to my committee members and colleagues for your tireless advocacy for your constituents and for your efforts within your own committee to uplift district residents in such a difficult budget year. Did you want to say something? Or are you just here? We will give a minute for Councilmember Parker, who is not a member of this committee, but also wanted to come. Welcome, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis George. I wanted to thank you and your committee for working with us in Ward 5, namely around DPR and the design work for the Langdon Recreation Center, as well as the Harry Thomas Recreation Center. I've said before, there is a tension between citywide needs and what neighbors on the ground are asking for. And our young people, our families want access to basic amenities in their neighborhoods, and that's what they deserve. And I think based on the changes that the committee made with input from me and my team, residents in Langdon, residents in Eckington will have access to recreation centers that they can actually utilize versus one that's just nice to look at on the outside. So I'll leave it there, but really excited for this work moving forward.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you to our committee members and colleagues for your tireless advocacy of your constituents, for your efforts within your own committees to uplift district residents in such a difficult budget year. The hard work ahead continues, and I look forward to doing it alongside all of you. With that, the business before the committee has concluded. The time is now 1:51 p.m., and this additional meeting of the Committee on Facilities is adjourned.